nobody on this road that can save your soul. Almost lost control now. Tell me what you need in a friend and now. Pray that we endure to the end again. I'm just saying that I'm here for you. When the world turn against you, I'ma be with you. Got my sword in my hand, you can count on me. I won't run and hide, fight mightily.
Waiting on your house shot. See the Jacob, I'm the apple of my father's eye. I learned the truth for who I was and it made me cry. If I don't keep the laws of Yah, then I'm gonna die. Living curses, but I'm edifying in my verses. Prepare the hearses for the heathens who be steady learning.
Call Yahweh by Shema Mashiach, woman like Yahushua, for another mighty day, another day that you have given us to bless and praise your holy name. Tonight, we're gonna get into something that's I've been wanting to get into this for a minute here now. It's a lot of strange, weird doctrines that be going on. A lot of our people are here and seem to think that, when we on the highways and the byways teaching, right? We see a lot of doctrines out here, right? But through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, he's given us the word and he's given us the spiritual fortitude to be equipped in such a manner that we don't get confounded by these false doctrines. Now, a lot of brothers and sisters be on black conscious community, Christianity, esoteric thoughts and doctrines. So tonight, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, Lord willing, we're going to get into how to cut up these doctrines and just introducing some of these doctrines of what they are, what they aren't, some of the history and things of that nature. Now, Lord willing, I'm going to give this Hebrew Israelite 101 warning. Lord willing, when we bring out these doctrines, you see the power to cut them down and you don't indulge in any of these doctrines. And if you are someone who's indulging in these doctrines, Most High willing, who is a Hebrew Israelite, right? A so-called Black, Latino, or Native American, then Most High willing, you can get the understanding to get the hell out of these doctrines and to get the hell out of these doctrines and to get far away from these doctrines, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Most High willing, let's get into it. So one of the key things with these doctrines, the first one we're going to get into is Hermeticism, right? So maybe a couple of weeks ago, we was out teaching and we saw, we literally combated this brother in the doctrine that he was pushing of Hermeticism. Sometimes they call it, you might hear of Hermes. Let's get right into this. So let's get into this, right? I'm going to start with Hermetics, right? Hermetics or Hermeticism refers to a philosophical and religious tradition rooted in the writings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. Now, sometimes you hear Hermes is Hermes, you hear him as Thoth, right? He's supposed to be an ibis-headed god, right? In the Egyptian pantheon. Now, right off rip, this should kind of really give you a red flag of why the hell are you dealing with something that has to do with Egyptians when we are Israelites, we're so-called Blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans of indigenous descent. You should stay far away from anything that has to do with the Egyptians and the gods, the false gods that they worship. All right. So Hermetics or Hermeticism, Hermes Trismegistus, a figure believed to be a synthesis of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth. Repeat that. You got Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth, and they then superimpose them together and they come up with this Hermes Trismegistus. This tradition emphasizes the unity of all things and interconnectedness of the microcosm, the human, and the macrocosm, the universe, and the possibility of personal transformation and spiritual enlightenment through inner alchemy and the pursuit of gnosis, which goes into knowledge. So, this false god, they have also attributed to saying that he's the one who created writing. He's the one who created what is called hieroglyphs. Now, what's very problematic about that too is we went in Genesis the 4th chapter and Genesis the 9th chapter. You can read it on your own time, but it even goes into how let me just get this real quick, right? Watch this. Hermes created hieroglyphs. And that's how you say it. Hieroglyphs. Okay, look, and here they're saying, no, Hermes, the Greek god, did not create Egyptian hieroglyphs. Instead, ancient Egyptians credited to the god Thoth. But you see, Thoth and Hermes are supposed to be the same person, right? So let's stop the madness. But nevertheless, let's entertain the word Thoth. Instead, the ancient Egyptians credited the god Thoth with the invention of hieroglyphic writing. Thoth was an Egyptian god of writing, magic, wisdom, and the moon. Now, peep this. If you know anything about the origin of the Egyptians, they come from Mizraim, right? Let's go to Genesis, the 4th chapter, real quick. Let's go to Genesis, the 4th chapter. Now, what you want to know is that when you go into Genesis, the 4th chapter, right? Well, actually, let's go to Genesis, the 9th chapter first, because in Genesis, the 4th chapter, we go here to prove, because a lot of people think that Cain is the father of the Canaanites. Now, the reason why that's important to understand that that's not true is because people will try to build this false narrative and this false doctrine and say, hey, Hermetics came from Hermes or Thoth. Thoth invented hieroglyphics and invented writing. People didn't know how to write before Thoth. But the reason why that's problematic is because Thoth, being an Egyptian so-called god or deity, we know that the Egyptians, if you look at lineage, come from Ham, the lineage of Ham, right? And so people think, and we know that you got Ham, you got the Canaanites that come from Noah's son Ham, right? We find this in Genesis, the 9th chapter. So look, right here, you see Genesis 9 and 17. And God said unto Noah, this is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all the flesh that is upon the earth, going into the rainbow, the bow, and the cloud. And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. Now that's very important, because when you go back to this Genesis, the 4th chapter, you see right here you have Cain, right? It said Genesis 4:1, and Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of the sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. So when you look at Genesis, the 4th chapter, you see that Cain was the son of Adam and Eve, right? When you go to Genesis, the 9th chapter, around the 17th verse, right here, you see that, or 18th verse specifically, you see that Noah's son was Ham, right? And Canaan was a son of Ham, the son of Noah. So Canaan would have been Noah's grandson, right? Because you got Noah, his son Ham, and his Ham's son is Canaan. So you clearly see that Canaan, who is the father or progenitor of the Canaanites, and Cain, who is the son of Adam and Eve, are two different people, two different time frames. And matter of fact, when the flood happened, we know that the Most High wiped everybody from the earth. So Cain wasn't even around to even be able to be the progenitor of Canaan. So that's a false doctrine. Now, the reason why that's important, tying it back to Hermes and Hermetics, right? And Thoth, supposed to being the god or the creator of hieroglyphics and all of this stuff, right? If you go into language, right, and linguistics, we know that you got Canaan, right here. And the sons of Noah that went forth out of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth, and Ham is the father of Canaan. And go to verse 22. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without, right? So you see continually that Ham is the father of Canaan. Now, why is that very important, right? Because when you go to Hermetics in biblical genealogy, they try to say, and I'm gonna bring this up. They try to say that let me get this family tree really quick, right? Of Ham's descendants, right? This is what I want to show you right here. In fact, I think I can share it right here. So bam. So you see Ham, the son of Noah. Now listen, now notice this. You have Canaan, you have Mizraim, right? Who is the father, which Mizraim goes into double straits. This is the father of the so-called Egyptian, all right? And then you have Cush, we know Ethiopians, Cush, the Cushites, and then you have Put, which I believe goes into the Libyans, right? And things of that nature. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is that when you go into this biblical narrative, we notice and we understand that Canaan is not the same as Cain. And we know before there ever was an Egyptian creating hieroglyphics, if you go back to the ancient Paleo, watch this. Ancient Paleo Hebrew verse Phoenician Canaanite script. So when you go into, I want to see, bam, I think this is what I'm looking for right here. So when you go into the biblical Hebrew, right, the earliest versions of the Paleo, this right here, the Paleo Hebrew, all right, these scripts existed before the Egyptian hieroglyphs. And even before that, if you go into the Canaanite, the Phoenician Canaanite script, far predated the Egyptian hieroglyphs. So since we know that the early Paleo and Phoenician Canaanite script predated the Egyptian hieroglyphs, we know that Thoth could not have been the founder of hieroglyphs, the founder of writing. First of all, Thoth is not even a real person. He's a false god, right? Well, that was just a side note. In case you ever get one of those brothers and sisters who deep into Egyptology or Kemetic school of thought, and they want to argue this Thoth, this Hermes, this Triumphus Gestis, and all this nonsense. And he was the father of writing, and the Israelites need to thank him. You can cut that up right there by going into the genealogy and showing who came first, and showing what writing systems, and showing because languages have families, right? Just how you have a family genealogy, languages have a genealogy, right? And these are all called Proto-Sinaitic language family, all right? So you can do your history on that, right? So let's jump off that real quick. And I'm actually going to bookmark. I like this image. Let me actually save this. This is a pretty cool comparison chart. Let me save this real quick so I can recall that later. Salaki, I wasn't even sharing that tab. So you can see right here. You see, bam, the Paleo Hebrew alphabet, the earlier of the Paleo Hebrew, which is the Phoenician Canaanite script, as they would call it. And then you see later on right here, you get the hieratic Egyptian, which I meant this is the Slakia, the Phoenician Hebrew, which is close to similar to the hieratic Egyptian. And you see right here, you can actually see the similarities in the Phoenician Canaanite script versus the actual Egyptian hieroglyphics. So just a fun fact on that, but let's get back to it in terms of this false doctrine of Hermetics, right? So Hermetic, too, what we refute is that they say, well, in Hermetics, it was as above, so below. So when you get into Matthew, the 6th chapter, and when you get into so forth and so on into the Lord's Prayer, and it says, it'll say, Abana Washba Shemayim Kodash Haya Shika Yahweh Balakata Taba'a Radizaka Haya Shah Ba'arataza Kawa Haya Bashemayim. Yeah, Ba'arataza Kawa Haya Bashemayim, right? As in the earth as it is in heaven. When you hear that phraseology, they try to go and credit that to Hermetics, because they say the principal doctrine of Hermetics is as above, so below. So they try to make this pseudo congruency and say that our doctrine and our truth of the scriptures is actually derived from Hermetics, and then they try to tie that to the 42 laws of Mayat, which, okay, how are you going to have 42 laws of Mayat and say that the commandments, which are over 613 roughly, come from 42? So how can you take 42 and stretch it into 613, which they cut themselves, because even a part of this doctrine in the 42 laws of Mayat, right? Let's get this real quick. In the 42 laws of Mayat, right? Look at this. Which also too, notice these 40, which are called 42 laws of Mayat, they're really more like a declaration. These aren't laws. These, look, 42 ideals of Mayat. Now they say laws, but they ideals of Mayat. Let's zoom in and see this. Now watch how they cut themselves. I honor virtue. I benefit with gratitude. I am peaceful. I respect the property of others. I affirm that all life is sacred. I give offerings that are genuine. All of this is some nonsense. These are actually just statements, right? These aren't any type of laws that nobody has codified to go by, right? Look, I am trustful in my relationships. I hold purity in high esteem. I spread joy. I do the best I can. I communicate with passion. I create harmony. I invoke laughter. I am open to love in various forms. What the hell does that mean? Because you know the Egyptians was into a lot of sodomy and homosexuality. And when you go into the coffin text, all you brothers who rocking with Egyptian and Kemetic theology, you got to accept that Horus and Osiris, in the coffin text, he says he's the one who copulates in his buttocks, that he put his rod in his buttocks and he took his breath away. This is the type of stuff y'all got to accept, right? A lot of homosexuality, right? That's why you even see here it says, I am open to love in various forms. We know what the Egyptians was getting into, right? I am forgiving. I am kind. I act respectfully of others. I am accepting. I follow my inner guidance. I converse with awareness. What the hell does that mean? I converse with awareness. These are not laws. These are what they call ideals, and these are more like statements, all right? Now notice, how do you take these 42 ideals and how do you get 613 laws, statutes, and commandments that we were taught by our God out of these? You don't. It's a false doctrine they teach. And another thing that cuts them, just when they say, yeah, all of the laws came from these 42 ideals or laws of Mayat, where in here in these 42 laws do you say anything about keeping the Shabbat? Where do you see that at? Nowhere in the 42 laws of Mayat. Where do you see don't eat blood, don't drink blood, or eat anything with the blood in it? You're not going to see it. Where does it say any of the ordinances of the Shabbat, right? Where does it talk about usury, or not, or the year of Jubilee, or the Passover? Like, it's madness, y'all. So when it goes into this hermetics and all of these things, it enables you to see, Lord willing, through the Spirit. This is bullshit, y'all. So like it for the language, it's straight bullshit, and it's straight nonsense. And if you don't watch out, and if you're not studied by Shem Yahushai to have the Spirit to know, then you're going to be caught out there, man. You're going to be caught out there, right? I want to get this quick precept, all right? um, in the book of Sirach, because this is why the Most High says in Sirach 5:15, be not ignorant of anything in a great matter or a small. In this truth, you got to be well studied. Yes, we study other doctrines to debunk them. We don't study other doctrines to roll with them. We study these other doctrines to purely debunk them. So Hermeticism, we're studying it to debunk it, to show you the holes in it. So our brothers and our sisters that are lost in these schools of pseudoscience and thoughts and false doctrines and idolatrous worshiping of idols and false gods and homosexuality, rods in the buttocks, all these type of things, we can with compassion, right, and with rigorous vigilance, cut these doctrines to shred through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shah, and Lord willing, try to pull our brothers and sisters out of these false doctrines. So if you in this false doctrines of hermetics and rods in the buttocks and all of these things, you got to get out of these doctrines, and you got to, Lord willing, come on to the righteous side. Right now, I went a little longer than I wanted to on this particular situation. But back to hermetics, they say as so above, so below. And they try to, as above, so like you're so below. And they try to morph that into saying that this is the doctrine of the Lord's Prayer. Couple of things. The chief principles of hermetics is alchemy, spiritual and material unity, and astrology. One big foundation of hermetics is astrology. Watch this. Hermetics and astrology. Look, Hermeticism and astrology are interconnected, particularly in their historical and philosophical roots. Hermeticism, with its emphasis on spiritual knowledge and the interconnected of all things, shares the common origin with astrology in the Hellenistic world. Both systems draw from Egyptian and Greek influence and share the concept of cosmic influence on human affairs. And when you go into this cosmic influence on human affairs, this is simply saying that the Most High God isn't controlling all things. It's actually the planetary bodies and their correlation to one another that gives some type of energy and some type of frequencies that will turn in and that will cause the effects of how human affairs are governed on this material plane. Nonsense. So much so that you hear a lot of brothers and sisters get into this, right? Mercury retrograde. This is one of the biggest things that they get in, which is coming up, right? So July 17th is here, right? According to their false understandings, right? They say that Mercury is currently in retrograde, right? Specifically from July 17th to August 10th. This astrological phenom is an illusion. Look, it doesn't even tell you this is trash. It's an illusion where Mercury appears to move backwards in the sky from our perspective on Earth. While not a real change in direction, astrologers believe it can lead to communication problems, travel delays, and technological glitches. So this is a part of the school of thought of Hermeticism, where they're taking these various so-called planetary bodies. They can't even prove, right, that Mercury is even Mercury, or that none of these planets, like, there's no substantial proof that the planet Mercury is what they even identify as Mercury. Nobody's ever been there, right? A lot of these, and even when you get into like which I just found this out, we working on a situation that has to deal with space and things of that nature, right? And one of the things that I found out is that even when you see these pictures of these nebulas and these star systems, and they're all colorful and all of that is Photoshop. They add those colors and things, right? It's a documentary I want brothers and sisters to tap into called I think it's called Space Race. One of my favorite documentaries, right? It's about a lot of the so-called black astronauts and things of that nature, and their experience of, so-called going to the moon or upper orbit and working with NASA and discrimination. And it's a lot of things that are shed, a lot of light that's shed in that particular documentary called Space Race. If you haven't seen it, definitely you want to go see it, and things of that nature. But nevertheless, so what the hell would planet going backwards, so-called, have anything to do with the effect of communication? And this is purely witchcraft, y'all, because a lot of brothers and sisters, I even had brothers tell me before, right, that a lot of people would say stuff like this: hey, Mercury's in retrograde, I ain't signing no business contracts right now. Or me and my girl, we having bad communication right now because Mercury is in retrograde. Or you know what? Hey, don't take a flight right now because Mercury is in retrograde. Man, we don't give a damn about Mercury. It don't control nothing. This all goes back when you go into these philosophies and you go into these false sciences as so-called, right? You are literally getting into idolatrous witchcraft practices that the Most High God don't rock with. If you are Israelite, you gotta abstain from these practices. Witchcraft, brother. Witchcraft, sister. Right? We're not dealing with Mercury and retrograde. And this also goes into when you get a lot of people saying their star signs, their sun signs, their zodiac signs, right? A brother had just dropped a hot record. Shout out to brother Yerad, right? He said, hey, she asked me what's my zodiac sign. I said, I don't get into all that. You don't get into all of that. What's your zodiac sign? And if you're a Sagittarius, then you don't fit well with a Libra. And I used to be in that and folly in the world. I used to call myself Libra Delence. Folly madness. But I had to come out of that when I came into the knowledge of the truth. All praise to the Most High Yahweh Shai. So to digress, but not to digress, all of these things go into false sciences, false doctrines, witchcraft, idolatry, astrology. And let's get Isaiah 47 and 13. Let's see what the Most High God says about hermetics, hermeticism, zodiac, alchemy, retrograde, and all of that foolishness, right? Let's get Isaiah 47 and 13. The book of Isaiah chapter 47, 13 through 14 says, thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsel. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators, prognosticators, that goes into those people who look at the cosmos, at the stars, the creation, not the creator, but the things in which the Most High God has created. And they put a narrative and they start charting and, horoscopes. You got to think horror goes back into Horus, right? And scope means time, to look through. So the horoscope basically means to look through time. And a lot of this stuff goes back to these ancient heathen nations in idolatry. The ancient Egyptians, the Assyrians, the Edomites. Hey, Esau in the ancient times was even getting into these sciences on the left-hand side, right? Monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. And this is the Most High God through the spirit and power that he gave to the prophecy of our mighty prophet Isaiah, cutting up and basically telling you, like, look, you want to practice these idolatrous customs, let that damn horoscope save you when the day of the Lord and the vengeance comes upon you. Let that horoscope save you from that disease that the Most High God is going to put on you. Let that horoscope, let these month prognosticators and your astrological configurations and your Mercury retrograde, you want to put your trust in that? See how that ends up for you, right? Behold, they shall be as stubble. The fire shall burn them. They shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. There shall not be a coal to warm at, nor fire to sit before it. So it's basically going into, if you're putting your trust in these things, you are in error. You are in idolatry, right? Let's get Deuteronomy 18 and 10. Let's get Deuteronomy 18 and 10. All right, so we'll go through 12. Deuteronomy 18, 10 through 12. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consultant with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto Yahweh. And because of these abominations, Yahweh thy God doth drive them out from before thee. So if you're into hermetics, which is astrology, which is astronomy. Now this is the thing is, there's actually an acute difference between astrology and astronomy. Astronomy is more the study of the heavenly bodies, right? The stars and such nature of that. Astrology is more the practice of putting a doctrine to those things and looking at those heavenly bodies and deducing or believing that they affect the human experience, for lack of a better word, right? So if you're doing those things, all of those things are an abomination. I want to get into this real quick. Let's get into an observer of time. Look at this. To practice soothsaying, enchanter, observer of time, soothsayer, sorcerer. Now, when you go into these, look, observer, watch this. I want to show you this. When you go into this soothsaying, let's look at the definition. Soothsaying, a person supposed to be able to foresee the future. So if you're going in, if you're an observer of time, you're supposed to be able to see the future on the left-hand side. And what do soothsayers use? They use star charts, star maps, astrology, horoscope. Let's get this definition real quick, right? Let's get this definition. Definition of horoscope and origin. So bam, look, a horoscope is a prediction of a person's future based on the position of the planets and stars at the time of their birth. Now, when did the Most High God ordain and say that your future or that your path in life that he determined is going to be based on the astrological configurations of the stars and the planets at your time of birth? When did the Most High God ever say that? He never did. In fact, let me get this quick precept real quick that just came to mind through the Spirit. Let's get this Jeremiah 1 and 5. Look, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee. And I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. Now, keep this, why this is key. Before Jeremiah was ever even born in the physical, before Jeremiah was ever even, before that seed of copulation entered into his mother from his father's loins, and before he ever could be compacted in 10 months in blood, right? Like it says in the Wisdom of Solomon, the Most High God had already preordained and predestinated and sanctified and set Jeremiah apart to be a prophet unto the nations. So where the hell did astrology come into play? Where did the horoscope come into play? It doesn't, y'all. Family, I want y'all to realize this. As Malcolm said, y'all been hoodwinked. into going into a false doctrine that's idolatrous. When you look into a horoscope and when you get into those practices, hermeticism, you are literally disobeying the Most High God, and you are literally serving an idol. You are literally saying that Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, you don't have power. The power of destiny or manifest destiny or predestination is determined by the creation, not the creator. That's what you're saying. And I want y'all to think about that. I want y'all to really reflect upon that. That's exactly what you're saying whenever you go into this astrology and this astronomy and things of that nature, right? And you don't want to get caught up in that, all right? So bam, back to horoscope. It can also refer to a diagram showing these positions. The term originates from Greek word hora, which means hour, and skopos, which means watcher, literally meaning hour watcher. In Salakia, I misspoke. I said to see through time, horoscope, but actually, as you see, I stand corrected. Hour and watcher. For someone who's a watcher of the times, a soothsayer, a diviner, a diviner, right? A witch, a warlock. While rooted in astrology, a pseudoscience, the practice of interpreting horoscopes continues to be popular, right? So, you know, you don't want to get into this at all, observing times. Let's get Wisdom of Solomon 13:1. Get Wisdom of Solomon 13:1. I think I 1, 2, 3, if I'm not mistaken. Khan. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13, verses 1 through 3. Surely, vain are all men by nature, who are ignorant of God, and could not out of the good things that are seen known him that is. Neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the workmaster, but deemed either fire or wind or the swift air or the circle of the stars or the violent water or the lights of heaven to be the gods which govern the world. Now, if this is not talking directly about astrology, astronomy, hermeticism, you know, a soothsaying, you know what I mean, horoscope, and y'all thinking that the stars, the circle of stars, the water, the lights of heaven, to be the gods which govern the world, with whose beauty, if they being delighted, took them to be gods, let them know how much better the Lord of them is. For the first author of beauty hath created them. And that's a mighty statement. If you really get caught up in the stars and the moons and the quasars, which I'm not gonna front, man, the stars are beautiful. And we look at the new moon, and there's so much knowledge and wisdom. You know, shout out to W.F.I, mighty teachers over there, our brother Nikequam, and all the brothers over there. But the brother always says something, and I love watching his new moon lessons when he says this. He says, when you look at the perfection of the moon, right, coming from dark to light and increasing, we should look at that through the spirit of coming out of the darkness and increasing and waxing mightier and mightier and mightier in his truth. And when you think about that, and that the moon was created by the Most High, and all of the heavenly bodies, the stars, the so-called planets, the clouds, the atmosphere, the sun, when you think about all of that, how can you look at that and worship those things and not worship the creator who created those things? The sun didn't create itself. Even your science with the, I think it's called the theory of thermodynamics. Let me see this real quick. I think that's what it's called, thermodynamics. I think that's what it is. Thermodynamics is a branch of physics that deals with heat, work, and temperature in their relation to energy, entropy, and the properties of matter. It's governed by 4 laws that describe how energy behaves in physical systems and it finds applications in various scientific and engineering fields. So the thing about thermodynamics is it basically, in one of the laws or rules of thermodynamics, is that you cannot have energy, cannot create itself. Like there has to be an outside force, or a force for a lack of a better word, that creates things. So even in the science of thermodynamics would prove that the sun did not just create itself, right? It wasn't the Big Bang and just combustion and now everything just created by itself, right? It had to be an outside force. And we know that force was Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Using Yahweh Shai, as we see in Colossians, right? And many other precepts on being that first creation who he used to create all other things. So you don't want to get into worshiping the sun and all of this nonsense and things of that nature. And that's what this is going into in this Wisdom of Solomon 13:1-3, right? So to summarize it up, right? Hermeticism basically glorifies the Egyptian god Hermes, and it's paganism. It's paganistic, it's Egyptian, it's Greek, and a lot of these things stem back to when? They stem back to the times where we were Hellenized, y'all. When we were under the Greek captivity. Our first captivity was the Egyptian captivity, right? Didn't the Most High God say that he put a difference in between the Egyptians and Israel? Did the Most High God say that in Exodus 11:7? Right? So peep this. Exodus 11:7. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast, that they may know how that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. So y'all, it's a difference in between us and Israel, us like in the Egyptians. So you shouldn't be following Egyptian customs, practices, worshiping their false gods, their so-called deities, taking up their custom. And I'm gonna get this too, right? When you indulge in these things, right, these Egyptian customs and practices, right, and when you get into Thoth and what is his name that's connected with Thoth? Geb and Geb. Look at this. So in Egyptian mythology, Thoth and Geb are distinct deities with significant roles. Thoth is the god of wisdom, writing, and moon, while Geb is the god of the earth. Now peep this, y'all. Geb is supposed to be the god of earth in Hermetics, in Egyptian theology. We know who the god of heaven and earth is. Yahweh, not no damn Geb. And all of you who are worshiping or who are in these practices, you cannot accept one thing and not accept all of them. If you're in Semitic theology, if you're in the practice of any type of Egyptian theology, if you're in the practice of, Hermetics, Hermeticism, you got to accept the whole damn doctrine, right? You got to accept the coffin text. You got to accept, look, Geb, Stephen on lettuce. And I hate typing this type of stuff in here, right? So, look at this. Madness, right? Look at this. This is, I hate even clicking on this stuff to have it even in my search history, to be honest. But we gotta bring it out. We gotta shake the hands at these false, wicked doctrines. In some versions of the ancient Egyptian myth, all this shit is Slaki, is myths anyway. It's not real, it's myths. The scriptures is real history, archaeology, prophecy, bloodline. This is just nonsense and foolishness. It is gay, y'all. Faggotry. Right? Look, in some versions of the Egyptian ancient myth concerning the deities Horus and Set, lettuce plays a role in the power struggle between them. Now, how does lettuce play a role in between the power struggles in between Horus and Set? Well, did they go and make a salad? Right? Did they kind of go out and they planted lettuce and they cut it and they made a salad and they put shallots on it and tomatoes and cheese and, you know, cucumbers. And is that how lettuce plays a role into them? I'm confused. You know, lettuce got to do. Well, let's see. According to the myth, Set attempts to assert his dominance over Horus through sexual intercourse. Now, we ain't talking about, hey, they both had a whole bunch of women, and Horus, you know, had more women, and Set, who was his uncle, so there's incest in this, right? Gave incest. We ain't talking about Set had a whole bunch of women, Horus had a whole bunch of women, and Set said, look, Horus, I'm gonna assert my sexual dominance over you by hitting one of your women or stealing your women, which is off in itself. That ain't what we talking about, y'all. What are we talking about? Horus, however, catches Set's semen in his hand. I hope you all listening to this. So Set pops Horus. I think he pops Horus. He copulates in his buttocks. This is hermeticism to assert his dominance. That's gay as hell, man. That's off. That's homosexuality. That's faggotry. They don't get into that. The Most High God set a difference in between Egyptians and Israel for this cause itself, right? It says, Horus, however, catches Set's semen in his hand. That's off. Why is a man catching another man's semen? Why is you even around to catch? Man, that's off. Horus then throws the semen into a river to prevent being inseminated by Set. This is off, man. It ain't even funny. It's madness. So this man caught another man's semen in his hand so he didn't get inseminated. Let's get it. See what inseminated means, right? In semen. Ate it. Let's see what this means. Look up inseminated. To introduce semen into a woman or a female animal by natural or artificial means. Inseminated means to bust a nut. Salakia for the language. To copulate, right? To have someone to ejaculate into you. And this is what the Egyptians believe in. You got to remember Horus, Set, Isis, Osiris. These are the main four deities, so-called gods, in their whole theology, their belief system. All of ancient Egypt is built on this philosophy. So if you're in Hermetics with Thoth, you got to accept Geb. You got to accept Horus. You got to accept Isis, Osiris, Set, Nuit, right? You got to accept all of these things. And you got to accept the connection of this man catching another man's semen so he's not busted into. You got to accept it all, y'all. And this is off as hell. Like I said, once again, I don't even like reading this stuff, man. I don't even like reading it. But we got to bring it out, man. We got to bring the truth out. We got to let it be known. We got to shake the hand at these false doctrines. Hey, this is what we hear in this truth for. To shed light so our brothers and sisters can get out of error, right? So moving on, I want to finish reading this. Wicked, right? Horus then throws the semen into a river to prevent being inseminated by Set, according to Wikipedia. Now this says, some people may be like, okay, well, this says according to Wikipedia, anybody can go on Wikipedia. Don't make us pull up the coffin text. We'll pull up the coffin text. The coffin text, which is where this comes from. One of their funerary texts of the Egyptian theology. In some version, Horus or Isis then deliberately, man, this is just sick, man. In some version, Horus or Isis, right, then deliberately spreads Horus's semen on some lettuce, which was Set's favorite food. What type of demon doctrine is this? Set then unknowingly eats the semen-covered lettuce. Later, when the two present their cases for dominance to the god, a miracle occurs where Horus' semen is revealed within Set, signifying Horus's dominance. So I'm damn lost for words. I'm just gonna be real, y'all. This shit is sick. This is nasty. This is off. Do you see this? In Hermeticism, it goes, they're trying to exert dominance, man over man, by who got their semen. What man got the other man? See, what man has his semen in the other man shows dominance. Family, this is up. It's gay, it's nasty, it's abomination. And this is why the Most High God said a difference in between you and the ancient Egyptians, and even the modern Egyptian, right? I want to get this quick precept right quick, right? This is just, man, and this is why in Leviticus 18:3 it tells us this. This is why the Most High God says this in Leviticus 18:3. Bear with me for this precept, y'all. This is why the Most High God tells you. Damn. Here we go. Leviticus 18:3. After the doings of the land of Egypt, wherein ye dwelt, shall ye not do. And after the doings of the land of Canaan, whither I bring you, shall ye not do. Neither shall ye walk in their ordinance. And with that, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Mashiach Wamalak Yahushai, Manna Mondays, right? I'm gonna do something a little different, Lord willing, this week. I'm gonna try every day to expand on the Manna Monday. So tomorrow, we're gonna have a special Manna Mondays edition, Lord willing, on Tuesday, right? So we're gonna call it Manna Tuesdays then. Nah, Manna Mondays Tuesday edition. And we're gonna go over the Kabbalah, y'all. The Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, the Kabbalah, right? We're going to touch on that tomorrow, Lord willing, same time, around 9:30. Probably going to do an hour, 9:30 to 10:30 on the Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism. But all praises to the Most High God, Yahweh. We do so by Shema Mashiach Wamalak Yahushai. Stay the hell away from Hermeticism. Repent. Keep the commandments. If you was in Egyptology, like I once was, you got to get the hell out of it, man. If you knew better, you do better. You got to repent. And remember, you are Israelite. You are bought with a price. The precious blood of a Mashiach Wamalak Yahushai. Kwam Yashala.